The phone rang at 7:30 on a Tuesday morning while I was pouring coffee. I didn't recognize the number, but something made me answer anyway. Is this Cameron Walsh? Yes. My name is Detective Iris Mendoza with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. I'm calling about your sister, Lauren Walsh. I set the coffee pot down carefully. My sister died 18 years ago. A pause. Mr. Walsh, I need you to sit down for this conversation. I'm fine standing. We've identified a woman in our custody who claims to be Lauren Marie Walsh, born April 1982. She has your family listed as next of kin. We've verified her identity through fingerprints and dental records. Your sister is alive. The kitchen tilted. I gripped the counter. That's impossible. I understand this is shocking. We need you to come to California to provide additional verification and to help us understand the circumstances of her disappearance. Can you do that? I don't understand. We buried her. There was a funeral. I know. That's part of what we're trying to piece together. How soon can you get here? I looked around my kitchen. The morning light coming through the window, the coffee growing cold, the normalcy of everything suddenly feeling like a set piece in someone else's play. I can be there by tomorrow. Good. I'll text you the address. Mr. Walsh, I need to prepare you. Your sister is not in good condition. She's been through significant trauma. When you see her, it's important that you remain calm. What happened to her? We'll discuss everything when you arrive. She hung up. I stood in my kitchen for a long time, staring at nothing, trying to make my brain accept what I'd just heard. Lauren had died when she was 19 and I was 22. Car accident, late at night. Rural highway. The vehicle had gone off the road and caught fire. The body had been badly burned, identified through dental records and personal effects. Our parents had buried her in a closed casket at Greenwood Cemetery, and for 18 years we'd visited her grave. Our father had died 6 years after Lauren. Heart attack. Our mother had followed 3 years ago. Cancer. I was the only one left, and now someone was telling me my sister was alive. I called my boss, told him I had a family emergency, and booked a flight to Ontario, California. Then I sat on my couch and tried to remember everything I could about the day Lauren died. It had been November. Cold. I was living in Chicago working my first real job out of college. Lauren had been a sophomore at a small university downstate studying education. She'd wanted to be a teacher. The call had come from our father. His voice had been flat, mechanical, like he was reading from a script. There's been an accident. Lauren's gone. He hadn't cried. He'd just given me the details. The highway, the fire, the body. He'd told me when the funeral would be and hung up. I'd driven home that same day. The funeral had been 4 days later. I remembered our mother sitting in the front pew, staring at the closed casket, not making a sound. I remembered our father standing beside the grave, hands folded, face expressionless. We'd never talked about it much after that. The grief had been there, but it was quiet, private. Our family didn't process emotions out loud. Now I tried to remember if there had been anything strange about it, any detail that hadn't fit. But I couldn't think of anything. It had just been grief, heavy and permanent. I landed in Ontario the next afternoon and drove to the Sheriff's Department building in San Bernardino. Detective Mendoza met me in the lobby. She was in her 40s, with dark hair pulled back and the kind of steady gaze that had seen too much to be easily surprised. Mr. Walsh, thank you for coming so quickly. Where is she? In a hospital. She's stable, but she's malnourished, dehydrated, and suffering from psychological trauma. We're keeping her under observation. What happened? Let's sit down. She led me to a small conference room and closed the door. A file folder sat on the table between us. 2 weeks ago, we raided a property in the high desert based on a tip about drug manufacturing. What we found was worse. It was a compound, remote, fortified. There were 11 women being held there against their will. Your sister was one of them. I couldn't speak. The women were kept in poor conditions, controlled through fear, violence, and isolation. Some had been there for years. Your sister told us she'd been there for 18, since she supposedly died. Yes. Who did this? Mendoza opened the folder and slid a photo across the table. A man, maybe late 50s, with graying hair and a hard face. Raymond Cotter. He's in custody now, along with 3 associates. We're still building the case, but it appears he was operating a trafficking ring. He'd identify vulnerable women, abduct them, and hold them at the compound. Some were moved elsewhere. Others, like your sister, stayed. I stared at the photo. I didn't recognize him. Why Lauren? We don't know yet. We're still interviewing the victims. But your sister mentioned your father's name. She said he knew Raymond Cotter. The room went cold. What? She said your father and Cotter were acquainted. She doesn't know the details, only that Cotter told her your father had agreed to let her go. That's insane. My father would never. I'm just telling you what she said. We're investigating. But right now, we need your help identifying her formally and understanding what happened 18 years ago. You said you verified her identity through fingerprints and dental records. We did, but we need family confirmation, and we need to understand how someone was buried in her place. I felt like I was falling. Can I see her? Yes. But I need to warn you again. She's not the person you remember. 18 years in captivity changes someone. She's been cooperative with us, but she's fragile. Don't push her. I understand. We drove to a hospital 20 minutes away. Mendoza led me through secure corridors to a private wing. A uniformed officer stood outside one of the rooms. She's inside, Mendoza said. I'll wait out here. I stepped through the door. The woman in the bed was small, thin, with long dark hair that looked like it had been recently washed. Her face was gaunt, shadowed. She was staring at the window, and when I entered, she turned her head slowly. I looked at her, and I saw my sister, older, worn, but unmistakably Lauren. Cam. Her voice was hoarse, uncertain. I walked to the bedside and sat in the chair next to her. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to process what I was seeing. It's me, I said quietly. She stared at me for a long moment, then her face crumpled, and she started to cry, not loudly. Just silent tears running down her cheeks. I reached out and took her hand. It was cold and small, and I held it carefully, like it might break. I thought I'd never see you again, she whispered. I thought you were dead. I know. We sat like that for a long time, not saying anything, just existing in the impossible reality that she was here, alive, real. Finally, she spoke again. Dad told him to take me. I felt my chest tighten. What? Raymond Cotter. Dad knew him. I don't know how, but they knew each other. The night of the accident, I wasn't driving. Raymond was. He ran me off the road, pulled me out of the car, and took me. And when I asked him why, he said Dad had arranged it. That doesn't make sense. Why would Dad? I don't know. Her voice broke. I've been trying to understand for 18 years. But I heard him say it. He said Dad owed him, and I was the payment. I couldn't breathe. Raymond burned the car with someone else inside. I don't know who. He told me it didn't matter, because no one would look for me once they thought I was dead. I sat there, holding her hand, trying to process what she was saying. Did you ever try to escape? At first. But they kept us locked in, and Raymond said if we tried to run, he'd kill our families. He knew where everyone lived. He showed me photos of you, of Mom and Dad. He said if I caused problems, you'd all die. So you stayed. I stayed. Her voice was flat, exhausted. What happened to the others? Some of them were moved. Sold, I think. Some died. A few of us were kept there long term. I don't know why. Maybe we weren't useful to him anymore. You've been there the entire time.
Yes.
I looked at her. This person who was my sister but also a stranger, 18 years. More than half her life. I'm sorry, I said. I'm so sorry. It wasn't your fault. I should have known. I should have looked harder. There was nothing to look for. Everyone thought I was dead. We sat in silence again. Outside I could hear the murmur of voices, the beep of monitors, the hum of hospital machinery. What happens now? She asked. The police are investigating. They're building a case against Raymond and the others. And Dad? Dad's dead. He died 12 years ago. She closed her eyes. Good. I left the hospital an hour later and met with Detective Mendoza in the parking lot. We need to exhume the body that was buried as Lauren, she said. We need to identify who it actually was. When? as soon as we get court approval. Probably within the week. And my father? Are you investigating him? We're looking into his connection to Raymond Cotter. So far, we've found financial records showing your father made several large payments to Cotter over the years. We're trying to determine what those payments were for. You think he paid Cotter to take Lauren? I think it's a possibility we have to investigate. I felt sick. Why would he do that? I don't know. People do terrible things for reasons we can't always understand. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's control. Sometimes it's just cruelty. He wasn't a cruel man. Maybe not to you. I went back to my hotel and sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it. My father had been a quiet man, reserved. He'd worked as an accountant for a manufacturing firm, kept to himself, didn't socialize much. He'd provided for us, but he'd never been warm. I'd always attributed that to his personality. Now I wondered if it was something else. I thought about the funeral, about the closed casket, about how quickly everything had been arranged. I thought about the fact that I'd never questioned it. The exhumation happened 6 days later. I didn't attend, but Detective Mendoza called me afterward. The remains we recovered were female, approximate age 18 to 22. We're running DNA analysis to try to identify her, but she's not Lauren. Who was she? Who we don't know yet, but we're cross-referencing missing persons cases from that time period. We'll figure it out. And the connection between my father and Raymond Cotter. We've confirmed they knew each other. Cotter did work for your father's employer, security consulting, contract work. It's possible your father encountered him through that. But we've also found evidence that your father owed Cotter money. Significant amounts. We think Lauren was used to settle that debt. You think my father sold his daughter. I think your father made a deal that cost Lauren her life. Or what should have been her life. I hung up and sat in my hotel room, feeling everything I thought I knew about my family disintegrate. My father had been distant, yes. But a monster. Someone who would trade his daughter to settle a debt. I didn't want to believe it. But the evidence was there. I stayed in California for 2 more weeks while the investigation continued. I visited Lauren every day. We didn't talk much. She was still adjusting to being free, to being safe. The hospital had therapists working with her, helping her process the trauma. I asked her once if she remembered anything specific about our father's relationship with Raymond. He came to the house once, she said. Maybe a year before the accident. I was upstairs, but I heard them arguing. Dad's voice was loud, which was unusual. He kept saying he couldn't do it, that it wasn't possible. And Raymond said something about consequences. Do you know what they were arguing about? No, but Dad looked scared after Raymond left. I'd never seen him scared before. I thought about that. About my father, trapped in something he couldn't escape. About the choice he'd made to sacrifice his daughter, rather than face whatever consequences Raymond had threatened. It didn't excuse what he'd done, but it made him human in a way I hadn't considered. The DNA results came back 3 weeks later. The body buried in Lauren's grave belonged to a woman named Maria Salazar. 19 years old, reported missing from Arizona 2 months before Lauren's supposed death. Raymond Cotter had killed her and used her body to stage Lauren's death. The case was airtight now. Cotter was charged with kidnapping, human trafficking, murder, and a dozen other crimes. His associates were charged as well. The prosecution expected guilty verdicts across the board, and my father, though dead, was named as a co-conspirator in court documents. I flew back home at the end of the month. Lauren stayed in California for treatment and continued interviews with law enforcement. She wasn't ready to come back yet. She said she didn't know if she ever would be. I understood. I visited Greenwood Cemetery the day after I got home. I stood in front of the grave with Lauren's name on it and stared at the headstone. Helen Patricia Mercer, 1945-1996, beloved wife and mother. No, that was wrong. That was my mother's grave. I walked 3 rows over to where Lauren's grave was. Lauren Marie Walsh, 1982 to 2001, except she wasn't there. Maria Salazar was there. A stranger. A victim of the same man who'd taken my sister. I didn't know what to feel. Anger at my father. Grief for Maria. Relief that Lauren was alive. horror at what she'd endured, all of it at once. I contacted a monument company and had Maria's name added to the headstone. It seemed like the least I could do. Her family deserved to know where she was, and she deserved to be remembered by her real name. Lauren called me 2 months later. "I'm doing better," she said. "The therapy is helping. I'm starting to feel like a person again." "That's good. I've been thinking about coming back. Not to the town where we grew up, but somewhere nearby. I want to try to rebuild. I'll help however I can." "I know." A pause. "Cam, do you hate him, Dad?" I thought about that. "I don't know. I'm angry, I'm confused. But I also think he was trapped in something he couldn't get out of. That doesn't make it okay. But it makes it complicated. Yeah, complicated. Do you hate him? I did for a long time. But now I just feel empty about it. He's gone. Hating him doesn't change what happened. It just makes me tired." That makes sense. I think I just want to move forward. Figure out who I am now. Not who I was before, not who I became in that place. Just who I am now. I think that's the right thing to do. She moved back 6 months later, to a small apartment in a neighboring state. We saw each other every few weeks. It was slow, careful. We were rebuilding a relationship that had been severed for 18 years. She got a job working at a library. She liked the quiet. She started taking classes online, thinking about finishing the degree she'd never completed. She didn't talk much about the compound. But sometimes, late at night, she'd call and we'd just stay on the line together, not saying anything. Just being present. I never remarried after my divorce. I lived alone in a quiet house and worked a quiet job and lived a quiet life. But now I had my sister back, and that was enough. I think about my father sometimes. About the choices he made. About whether he regretted them. I'll never know. But I know Lauren survived, and I know she's building a life now, piece by piece. And I know that some betrayals are so deep, they don't just destroy the present, they reshape the past. For 18 years, I mourned a sister who wasn't dead. And now I'm learning to know the one who survived. If you've ever discovered that the life you thought you knew was built on a lie you never saw coming, you're not alone.